Hello students. So in the previous class we were talking about that of the water cycle. Okay. So we had discussed a lot of the water cycle. We studied that why the term cycle is used in the water cycle concept. So basically what happens student, in that we study that this goes step by step, and in the first step there is the evaporation of the water which is present on the surface of the water bodies. It absorbs the heat from the sunlight, and due to which it get evaporated, and as it get evaporated, the process we call it as the evaporation. Not only the evaporation student, but through the process of the transpiration also, that is the loss of water, loss of excess water from the plant, the water vapor get present on the atmosphere. In the second one study that when it reaches to a higher altitude, when it reaches to the sky, since the temperature is low, it get converted into the teeny droplets of the water. Okay, that tiny droplets of the water will be, we call this result due to the process of that of the condensation. Okay, now this tiny droplets of the water will combine with the other tiny drops of the water and becomes a big droplet of the water which we call as a rain. Now this big drop of water, that is rain, it comes down to the earth, to that of the ground, and finally from there it will reaches to the sea or the ocean or to the water bodies again. So you see here student, it started from the water bodies and finally it met to that of the water bodies. So this is what it is, a kind of a cycle which repeated itself many times. So we will say that it is actually it is a cycle that we call as a water cycle. Okay. In spite of that, we also studied one more thing, and that is about the rain. First of all, we studied the importance of the water cycle student. What is the importance, students? So we studied that it helps us in giving the fresh water. Okay. How is this so? You see the saline water, the sea water, the ocean water is having a lot of salt in it. And this salty water, when it gets evaporated, finally comes to the ground in the form of a rain, which is the fresh water, which is a pure form of water. So by that of the salty water, we are getting a fresh water. So we will say that this water cycle is also responsible for giving us the fresh water. Second thing, it helps in maintaining the level of the water on the earth. It means it helps in maintaining the surface of the water constant. How is this so students? Because the water which is lost due to evaporation, by that of the water bodies, it will finally come to the same water body through rainfall. So what happened here? The water gets evaporated, it goes in the upward direction, finally it reaches to that of the same water body. So here is the loss of the water is compensated by that of the rainfall. So we will say that rain also helps in maintaining the water. Okay, level of the water, or it help in water cycle, it help in maintaining the water surface as a constant. Okay, then water cycle, the result of the water cycle is the rainfall students, and we said that sometimes in the winter region also, where the area is very cold, okay, where the temperature is very low, at that time this rainfall will gives the snow to it, okay, and that we call as a snowfall. Okay, so snowfall basically occur in the area, in the region where the temperature is very low. We studied about that what is the importance of the rain students. So different importance are there. First, that it helps in the proper growth of the crops. So most of the crops, they are dependent on the arrival of the rain. If there will be no rainfall, then what will happen? The crop will dry. Second, it helps in lowering the temperature. It helps in giving relief to us by cooling the temperature. Third one is it helps in maintaining the level of the underground water, because you know that the rainwater seeps to the ground, seeps under the ground, and where it will form some water reservoirs, which help in maintaining the level of the water. as well as it helps in filling that of the water bodies, which is a very important source of our water, like that of the river, pond and lake. Okay, and this rainwater is used to collect in the form of a dams or river, where it is used in generating the electricity. So a lot of examples are there of the rainwater. By this we can understand that how rainfall is very important for us. Not for us it means for all the living organisms, for all the biotic component which is present on the earth, students. Biotic, abiotic, all the components. Now we will talk, okay, we are talking about the rain, that how it is important. But this rain, if a rain is in a proper amount, then it's okay. But if a heavy rainfall occurs, students, it will cause a lot of a problem to the living organism. So we will discuss about the problem which is caused by that of the heavy rain. Okay. So the first thing which affects that of the heavy rain, students. So the roads, the parks, the places will get filled with the water. So we will say that water clogged occur on the roads. Okay, and due to which there is an inconvenience for the people to move, people to walk on the road. Okay, and due to this you have seen a lot of accident occur during this water clogging during this rainfall. Okay, so if a heavy rainfall will be there, so it will lead to the water logging. Okay, so water logging or waterlogged roads and street in city areas. Okay, and due to which it created inconvenience to the people. Okay, so you will see, student, the water logging, especially in that of the city area, the water logging occur in the road and the city due to heavy rain, and due to which you will see a lot of inconvenience will be occur to the people living in that of the city area, students. The second one, the problem which is caused by that of the heavy rainfall, students, that heavy rainfall leads to flood. When we say that okay, up to a certain level the rainfall occur, it means that rainfall is useful for the crop, it is useful for the living organisms. But if the level is much more, if the rainfall is very heavy, then it will lead to flood. So we will say that heavy rainfall leads to heavy rainfall, students, it leads to flood. Okay, so if a level of the water, if the rainfall is occur a lot, then it will cause a flood, students. Okay, so you see here, student, what is the consequences of the flood that living organisms suffer? So what will happen? This water will starts moving from one place to other. We will say that it will comes over the bank of the river. It will reaches to the city area. It will clog the roads, the street, as well as you will see the houses. The city will get filled with the water. The materials starts flowing in the water, and this will lead to a loss of the property and the life also. Okay, so the flood is really not a good thing, students, because a heavy rainfall leads to the death of a lot of people. Okay, so it will lead to the loss of property as well as loss of lives also. Okay, so the water, it starts coming over that of the bank of the river. It starts going to the cities. It will move away. It will take away all the material, houses, and all the animals also to the with the flow of the water. So we will say that this heavy rainfall laws of life and property. Okay, students? Now, not only this, student, if you see that it will also causes the loss of the crops also. Because you know that crops, they need water, but if the amount of water will be more, then what will happen? The crop will get destroyed. Okay, so it will destroy the crops. Okay, the animals which is not only this, the animals which is present in the forest, because the heavy rainfall it goes to that of the forest also, it will fill the forest also, so the animals will also flows, will also drown in the fast flowing water. So we will say that it will take away the animals in the fast flowing water. Animals will be taken away in the fast flowing water. The fast flowing water. Okay, so these are the things in which we will say that we can say that the heavy rainfall will cause the problems to the living organism. So we have studied about the life, about that of the human being, as well as about that of the also that how they will suffer from that of the heavy rainfall. Not only this, student, if you see that one more point is there, and that is about the underground animals. Okay, so the animals which is living under the soil. Okay, so that animals will also suffer, will also lose their life due to the heavy rainfall. Basically, what happens, student? The heavy rainfall will clog the pores which is present in the soil, and you know that they used to respire through the pores which is present in the soil. Basically, if you see the pores, soil is what? It is porous. Porous means it consisting of a pores in it. Pores means it consisting of a small holes in it, students. Okay, so soil is a porous, it consisting of pores in it, and that pores consisting of oxygen in it. Okay, so we will say that the animals which is present in the soil, they take up their oxygen from the pores of the soil. Now, when these pores, when the heavy rainfall will be there, the soil will be totally filled with the water. So, the pores which is present in the soil will be filled by the water, students. So, there will be no space will be there for the oxygen. And thus, if there will be no oxygen available to the animals which is living under the soil, they will die. So you can understand it that the animals which is present underground, which is present under the soil, they respire by the pores which is present in the soil, because that small hole, that small pores present in the soil consisting of oxygen in it. Okay, and they used to take up the oxygen from the pores and they respire. Okay, students. So respiration process occur due to the pores present in the soil. Now, if the water will be more, the amount of water will be very high, then what will happen? This pore will also be filled by the water, and finally you will see that there will be no oxygen available in the soil, and the animals which is present in the soil, they will finally die. So you will see that it will also affect that of the affects the animals living under the ground or under the ground, How, students? As so it will also affect the animals living under the ground by blocking the pores present in the soil, due to which what happened? Thus, animals living inside the soil cannot respire. Okay, students? So they are not able to respire. They do not show the property of respiration. So these are the problem which is caused by that of the heavy rain, student. First one, it will waterlog that of the road and that of the street, and due to which the people they cannot move, they find inconvenience, and it will also cause a lot of accidents also. Okay. Second one, that it leads to flood, and you all are knowing that there is a very bad consequences of that of the flood, student. It will comes into the house, it will kill the living organism, it will lead to the loss of the property, it will lead to loss of the lot of a building falls down, trees falls down. So you will say it will lead to a lot of loss of a property as well as that of the life of the people. Then if we talk about the animals, students, so yes, for the animals also flood is not good because it will lead the animals to pass, it will make them to flow in that of the fast moving water. Okay, so it will also kill the life of the animal also. And if the lot of water will be there in the forest, then what will happen? They will not get a sufficient amount of or they cannot move also. For the terrestrial animals, they cannot move with the lot of water present in the jungle or in the forest. Not only this, students, for the animals, but for the crop also, if a lot of water will be there, then it will lead to destruction of the crop. Sufficient amount of water is needed for the growth of the crop. The crop should not get an excess amount of water also, because it will lead to the death of that of the plants. Then if you talk about the animals which is living inside the soil, so inside the soil it is present, it will use to take the oxygen which is present in the pores of the soil. But if a lot of water will be present on the surface of the soil, so it will take place, or it will take the portion of fill the portion of the oxygen also with water. So there will be no oxygen, and if there will be no oxygen, they will die. Okay, so the small pores which is present in the underground in that of the soil will be filled with the water, leads to the death of the animals living inside the soil, students. Okay, so this is the consequences or the problem caused by that of the heavy rain. Now we will talk, okay, if a rainfall will be more, then it will cause a problem. What will happen if there will be no rainfall occur? Okay, so we will write that what is the problem caused by the lack of rainfall, okay, or when the rainfall will not occur, students. A more amount of water will be there. If a more rainfall will occur, it will cause a flood, students. But what will happen if there will be no rainfall, or the amount of the rainfall will be less? So you know that, student, all the living organism which is present on the earth, they need water, and this water we get it from the different water bodies. So that is what it is, the source of our water, source of water. Okay, so we are dependent on these water bodies, and rainfall or rainwater help in maintaining the level of these water bodies. Or when we were talking about the water cycle, student, there also we studied that how rainfall help in maintaining the level of the water surface constant. Okay, because in that only, when the evaporation occurs during very heat, during very hot temperature, rainfall comes in the form of a rain and fill the dried lake and that of the other sources of water. So we will understand that this rainfall is very important. Not only this, it is also important for maintaining the moisture in the soil. Soil is a abiotic component. Again, we are dependent on the soil because the crops, they grow in the soil itself. Okay, so we are depending on the soil also, and soil need a moisture, and that moisture is available due to that of the rainfall, because ultimately after some time it will lose the moisture, students. Okay, so it will help in giving the moisture to the soil. It will help in the growth of the crops. It will help in maintaining the level of that of the water body, and helps in maintaining the level of the underground water. So we will say that if there will be no rainfall, it will going to affect the underground water, it will going to affect the living organisms. As the living organisms, we can say that of the crops, or that of the animals and the human beings also, students. Okay, so first of all, we should understand that what are the different consequences which we will face just because there will be lack of water. Let me tell you, student, lack of water or the shortage of the water, if you see in the book, it is written as a shortage of water is what? Is drought. Okay, so you can say drought or that of the shortage of water. When we are talking about the heavy rainfall, we said that when the excess amount of the rainfall will be there, then it will cause the flood. So excess amount of water, excess amount of rainfall causes flood, and shortage of the water, it causes drought. Okay, so drought. So now what are the different consequences, student? Now we will write it and understand it properly. So you see here, the first consequence that we had discussed for the rainfall, student, that is the lack of water. What it will do, the first one, the lack of water will make the soil dry. Okay, so lack of water makes the soil dry. Okay, why? How is this, student? Because you know that the evaporation and the transpiration process will occur, and due to which the soil will lose all its moisture which is present in it, and due to which it becomes dry. So due to the lack of the water, soil get dry, student, and if the soil get dry, if the soil lack all the moisture, what it will going to affect? It will going to affect the crop, students. So we can write it that what is the consequences of the soil to lose the moisture, that it will affect the growth of the crops. Okay, so it will going to affect the that of the growth of the crop, students. So you can understand it by that if the crops will not grow properly, then what will happen? It will lead to the shortage of the food for the living organism. So it will affect the growth of the crop, thus leads to the shortage of food. Okay. So you can see here, student, when there will be no water, it will going to make the soil dry, and as the soil gets dry, soil loses all the moisture, due to which the crop that we grown in the soil will also get affected. So it will going to affect the growth of the crop, students, and when there will be no proper growth of the crop occur, when there will be no proper irrigation will be possible, then what will happen? There will be shortage of the food. Okay, so scarcity of the food or the shortage of the food is due to the lack of the rainfall, student. Okay, so drought is a condition in which there will be the availability of the food is very less. Okay, so shortage of the food is the first consequences of that of the drought story. Second, why food only? But the other things like the sources of the water. Okay, so okay, the soil, if it is dry, it is not consisting of a moisture in it, and due to which the proper growth of the crop is not possible. Okay, not only this, student, drought will affect the level of the water bodies also. So we will say that lack of rainfall leads to less or decreases the level of water bodies. Okay, so lack of rainfall, it leads to the lowering the level of the water bodies, or lack of rainfall leads to the drying up of water bodies, which includes river or lakes, ponds, etc. Okay, so lack of rainfall leads to drying of the water bodies, river, lake, ponds. Okay, and you know the student that these are the important source of the water for us. So because of that, because of the drying of the water bodies, it will lead to the scarcity of water too. Okay, so lack of rainfall leads to the shortage of the food in the living organism. Lack of rainfall also leads to the scarcity of the water or shortage of the water, because all the water bodies will get dry up, and thus the source of the water, the availability of the water in this river, lake or pond, which is the important source of the water for us, will be less, which cause the shortage of the water too. Okay, not only this, students, the soil, it get dry, and due to which what happens, students, it will not able to grow a proper amount of fodder for us, for that of the domestic animal. So we will say that lack of water leads to the shortage of that of the grasses and the other fodder for that of the domestic animal, students. So it will say that the vegetation and other fodder will not be able to grow. Why is this so? Because the soil does not consisting of a moisture in it, so the fodder and other vegetation will be not able to grow. It will lead to the shortage of food for the domestic animals. Okay, students? So the vegetation and the other fodder will also be not able to grow just because of the dry soil, and this will lead to the shortage of the food. Okay, next point is drought leads to the mass death of the animals and that of the plants due to dehydration. So we can say that since the water is not available, due to which the plants and the animals, they are not able to survive, so it will lead to the mass death of living organisms, okay, including plants and animals. And why is this so, student? Due to shortage of So mass death occur due to drought or mass death of the living organism, which includes the plant and animals, occurs due to the shortage of the water, due to the scarcity of the water. Okay, not only this, student, you have seen that since they are not getting the living organism, they are not getting a sufficient amount of water, they are not getting the sufficient amount of the food, so they start migrating from one place to the another place in the search of the food and that of water. So we can say that not only this, that the death of the living organism occur, but migration of the living organisms also occur. Migration of living organisms occurs due to shortage of food and water. So you can write it also like the migration of the living organism occur from one place to the another place in search of the food and water by the living organism. Since there is a shortage of the water, student, so they ultimately have to go somewhere so that they will get a proper amount of water and food for themselves. So these are some of the consequences, the results of that of the drought, students. So it will going to affect the soil. First of all, the soil becomes dry, soil becomes patchy. Okay, the second one, that it will going to affect the crops. Okay, the crops will not going to get a sufficient amount of water, and due to which the plants they die. As not a good amount of a crop will be present, so it will going to lead leads the shortage of the food for us. Okay, so scarcity of the food or shortage of the food will be occur due to the lack of rainfall. Then we study that not only this the living organisms, but if you see the domestic animals, the proper growth of the proper vegetation like that of the grasses and the other fodder will be not possible due to the dry soil, dry and patchy soil, and moisture is not present in it, and due to which the low, or we can say the shortage of the food, shortage of the fodder for the domestic animal also occurs. Then we study that since the water is not available in a proper amount, so it will lead to the mass death of the living organism, including the plants and animals. Not only the student, okay, shortage of the food is there, but shortage of the water will be also there. Scarcity of water will be there. How? Because the rainfall is the rainfall is not there. So you know that this rainfall, it will help in filling the water bodies. And if proper amount of rainfall will not occur, so it will lead to lowering the level of that of the river and lakes, or it will lead to drying up the river and the lakes, the water of the river and lakes, ponds, etc., which is a very important source of the water for us. So if these water bodies get dries up, so it will lead to the shortage of water, scarcity of the water for us. Okay, and finally we studied that due to the shortage of the water and the scarcity of the water and shortage of the food, the animals or the living organisms, they used to migrate from one place to another in search of the food and water. So migration is also caused due to that of the drought. So here we have discussed that what will happen if a heavy rainfall will occur, what will happen if a less rainfall will occur. Okay, so what are the consequences of the flood as well as that of the drought.